Welcome to Philly Tech Connect podcast, where Philly's tech minds meet. CEOs, developers, dreamers. This is your space. Each week, we explore the journeys of tech innovators. Join us and be inspired.
Hey everyone, Dave here with another episode of the Philly Tech Connect podcast. Today I'm speaking with Matt Canning, a Philly-based technologist, executive leader, entrepreneur, and the founder of Noplex, an ecosystem built to empower individuals struggling with ADHD to succeed in a neurotypical world. Matt, how are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm excited to talk about this product that you're working on. Actually, you describe it as an ecosystem. So let's kind of start there. Like, tell us a little bit about the background of Noplex and why you didn't refer to it as a product. There's a specific reason you chose ecosystem. Tell me.
That's a great question. Yeah. So, Noplex, as you mentioned, it's to empower individuals with ADHD to manage their lives in a neurotypical world. I was inspired to create it due to people in my immediate family that struggle with ADHD, and it's something that's sort of been top of my mind for a long time as a parent, and something that I've begun to realize over the years that there were gaps in, I won't say care, but in tooling, right? If you have ADHD in 2025, you have an abundance of telehealth options and coaching opportunities and video games that purport to help you improve focus, but there was nothing that really addressed the day-to-day reality, right? Drop off medication at your elderly relative's house, pick up your brother from the bus stop, right? And for those who really struggle, drink water, walk the dog, things like that. There was nothing for that. And I think a lot of people were retrofitting tools that were built with sort of a neurotypical bias. And because of that, you start to see that people with ADHD churn very quickly on productivity tools, but have a deep-rooted desire to manage their lives digitally. And so we sort of went down the rabbit hole. I started to really understand it a lot better than I had previously. Began to understand that, a lot of the stigmas that existed culturally around ADHD, when we were younger, have eroded a lot. There's a huge culture of influencers and people who are, really focusing on the superpower side of it as opposed to the disability side of it. And the moment I realized I needed to just drop everything and build this app was when I found out there had been over 30 billion posts on TikTok tagged with ADHD related tags. And, there are Australian mom with ADHD podcasts with huge listenership, and there was a whole world out there. And the community that I was able to serve and solve some problems for was much larger than I originally thought. And that's sort of why. As far as the ecosystem side, currently right now what we have is a B2C app. You could download it through the Google Play Store, through the Apple App Store, or use it on the web. But we call it an ecosystem because what we're working toward is building out a world in which there's also a product and a service for behavioral health providers, so therapists and coaches and whatnot, to connect with their clients through Noplex and get AI-derived behavioral insights, insights about strategy compliance, and really be able to provide better care. So that cyclical side of it is why we refer to it as an ecosystem.
Nice, interesting. So I'm very curious. I'm no stranger to productivity apps. I use a very kind of simple Trello Kanban system for a lot of my kind of day to day, and I've been fortunate that has just kind of worked for me. But what are some of the sort of with traditional productivity apps that you found that they weren't really working in this use case? What were some of the oversights?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So to understand that, so we're not clinicians, right? We're user experience professionals. And my team and I have been doing that for a really long time. And so we looked at it and said, how could we distill all these different complexities and symptoms and problems that come along with ADHD into, a package of challenges, and how could we take the things that neurotypical productivity apps provide and achieve the same thing, but while circumventing those challenges. And so we talked with clinicians and everything, and we basically tried to come up with ways to create digital proxies for the manual processes that work really well for people with ADHD. So for example, where we provide a place to curate tasks and a place to execute your tasks are separate, right? So, one strategy that a lot of therapists and coaches will use with people with ADHD is, take your to-do list and walk over to a whiteboard calendar and just take 3 things from today and put that in today's box, right? And that's all you have to worry about. Forget the rest. Forget that sense of overwhelm. Forget that sense of failure that comes along with not going too deep into your to-do list. Just pick this and put that there. So we created this concept of the horizon. So the idea is you have a task management tool, you put your tasks in, you prioritize them, you add metadata to them, whether they're important, whether they're due dates, et cetera, et cetera. But then you have a view of just today, and that's called your horizon. And that's your primary view in the app. That's where that's what the widgets focus on for, the digital or the mobile apps. And what that does is that's what your progress bar is based on. And that's what you're alerted on at 1 p.m. if you still haven't put anything in your horizon. And that's what you're alerted on at 9 p.m. or wherever you have it set if you still have things remaining on your horizon. And it's just this focus on today, right? And that separation, execution, and curation is just one example of how this is different. And we originally launched it specifically for people with ADHD, but we began to get feedback from people with anxiety, either comorbid with ADHD or just people with anxiety, saying that view really helps them and resonates with them. So the one quote I loved was, if I have 30 things on my to-do list and I complete 3, all I see is the 27 remaining mocking me. And with Noplex, I don't have that as much, right? And it's built in a way where I can't really force my way into seeing my entire to-do list in my primary view. So
Very cool. So it sounds like in some ways you've maybe simplified, reduced the noise
yeah,
for individuals who may be particularly sensitive to kind of the overwhelming nature that to-do lists can be. You mentioned getting feedback from people with anxiety. Have you gotten feedback from people that are, I guess, neurotypical and just been like, hey, I just, I like this better than anything else. Have you seen anything like that?
absolutely. That's a great question. Actually, I believe our top users by volume that we've interacted with and surveyed with and everything are actually individuals who identify as neurotypical. They just think it's a better experience. And it's interesting because, so we have this concept of a supporter, right? So I have a task, say it's a recurring task, shows up on my horizon every Tuesday, take out the trash. And I push one button and I add my wife as the supporter to that task. She gets a notification, Matt added you as a supporter to the task, take out the trash. Now, if she goes to bed and she's wondering, did Matt remember to take out the trash? She knows because she would get a notification if I did, she would get a notification if I didn't. And so what we've realized is that's not exclusive to people with ADHD, right? That's just part of being someone with responsibilities in a complex world and a complex digital life. And so, a lot of the things that work well for people with ADHD also just happen to be, really good tools for others. Another example is we have this concept of routine, right? So I can have a routine that shows up every Saturday, right, for chores or things I have to do. But then there's other things where you can run a routine ad hoc, right? So for instance, I always, whenever I go anywhere on a trip, I always leave streaming services logged in. Like I always forget to log out. So, there could be a routine for leaving a rental that reminds you of all these things, throws it in your horizon, you're made aware of them before you leave. Again, not something that's exclusive to people with ADHD or neurodivergence at all. It's just something that resonates with people and works really well.
Yeah, I guarantee there's someone like watching my kid's Disney subscription right now because we were
Oh,
just
yeah.
like in Orlando. It's just like the way it
The
is.
whole East Coast is just
Yeah.
littered with my
They're
subscriptions.
just enjoying it, and let them enjoy. Very cool. So, I mean, your background, we didn't really talk that much about it, but I'm aware that you have had, some relatively senior roles at large companies, some Fortune 50 companies, some Series B companies. I don't know if you're still kind of employed while you're working on this as a side project or you're kind of full time on Noplex, but what's the team kind of consist of right now at Noplex, and how have you sort of coped with the transition of working on, small team, small company, startup?
Yeah, no, you nailed it. I've been basically in the Philly area my whole life. I worked for a really long time at Comcast in a bunch of different roles. You don't get much larger than that, you know.
Here, yeah.
I was um, the I guess June of 2023 or so, maybe August of 2023 is when, I begun prototyping this and decided this is it, I have to go and, go big or go home. So it's been full time since then. I have a head of engineering and a head of product who are people that I've worked with many times in different contexts in the past. So we're kind of this dream team, as far as I'm concerned. They are so I have them, they're full time. They've been full time since February of 2024. We've rotated in some interns, and I have contractors that I've worked with for software engineering. We have a contractor for software engineering. We have a contractor for growth strategy and social and things like that. So core team is the three of us, and we augment as we need to.
Nice.
And yeah. But to answer your question, I feel like the things that I've had to do leading organizations at larger scales, at medium scales, and at smaller scales, there's a lot that crosses over. Just like in normal life, things you learn from the sports you play or the music you make teach you things that you can apply to your career, and vice versa. Same thing with different scales of companies, I find.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's just certain, people skills, obviously needing to set an agenda, prioritize things,
Yeah.
KPIs, th those are kind of fundamental best practices that more or less serve a team of any size. There's obviously some nuances, I imagine, you probably, not necessarily overly focused on things like culture at the moment and things like
Right.
that. But that will come. So what's next for Noplex?
Yeah, so we officially launched Christmas Eve, so we haven't done any marketing really yet. We've, really just been pushing it through organic discovery, which has gone really well. Our entire approach so far has been, direct to users. And right now we are kind of launching our initiative for, what's considered consumer wholesale. So the idea of getting this into the hands of companies as an employer health and wellness benefit, or to universities as a student resource, and sort of getting it out there in ways where it's a little more, single point to larger distribution.
Nice. That sounds like some good goals for the year. Excited to follow along. For people, Matt, that want to learn more about you and Noplex, where should they go?
Yeah, so Noplex is Noplex.ai. We're working on getting the .com from a manufacturing company in Europe, who, they don't seem terribly attached to it, so we're working on it. Noplex.ai, and my personal website is matthewcanning.com, Canning, which is really just kind of a hub for some of the things I've been working on.
Cheers. Nice to chat with you, Matt. Thank you so much for your time.
Absolutely. Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
That's all for today's episode of Philly Tech Connect. Join our community at phillytechentrepreneurs.com. Special thanks to our sponsor, Shortlist.io, a digital marketing agency specializing in top-notch link building, content strategy, and web design. Stay innovative, Philly, and see you next time on Philly Tech Connect.